What's going on YouTube? It is Rocky and I am back with another video, and in this video we're going to talk about how I live and how I lived in Brazil for under $1,000 a month. Now, if you don't know me, my name is Rocky and I'm an expat and I've been living in Brazil for almost 4 years, and I want to share a lot of the experiences that I have here on this channel. Now, I'm going to break down pretty much all the normal expenses anyone would have living in any country. All your basic expenses, leisure, and everything from transportation to streaming to haircuts, all that stuff. I'm going to break it down in this video. I just want to take the guesswork out of what you would be spending your money on, just living here in Brazil. So I'm going to just break that down for you. So I'm going to start with food. So I spend about $75 on food every month as a single person in Brazil, or when I was a single person, because I am married now. But I want to make this video as one person living in Brazil and like spending less than $1,000 living as one person here. I'm going to give you some tips as well as to how to save money living here and what I've been doing. So I go to these feiras. So they're basically like farmers markets where they have food out on the table, fruits, vegetables, sometimes meats. And here in Salvador, they have a feira called 𝗕𝗂𝗂𝗏, and it's super cheap. It's a lot cheaper than the supermarkets to get like fresh produce. So I can get a whole bowl of like what they call it, bell peppers and apples and all types of fruit for just $1, like 5 reais, the equivalent of that. If you've been to a developing nation where they have these open markets, then you'd recognize it when you see it. And if you're comfortable with that, you just have to know and keep in mind that you have to wash your produce when you get home, because it's like in an open area. It's not as clean as it would be in a supermarket, but nonetheless it's still very fresh produce, like it's almost from the farm. So yeah, and I spent about $25 and I get all my fruits and vegetables. I'm talking about strawberries, even spices too, like some spices you can get out there for very, very cheap. Like a little bag is like 3 reais, 4 reais, and FYI, if you're new to like the whole Brazil ecosystem, reais is plural for real, which is the currency here in Brazil, and it's about 5 to 1. And then I go to Sam's Club. Now I have a membership at Sam's Club here, and it's about $12 a year, or the equivalent of $12 a year, and I buy in bulk, and a lot of things don't finish for a long time. And each time I go, I probably spend about $30, maybe $40. And then I also go to the local supermarkets like Bom Preço, 𝗕𝗂𝗏𝗄𝗏, 𝗕𝗂𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗀, and a bunch of other supermarkets that are out here. I go there and I spend about $30 or so each time. So in all, it's probably like 20 or to 30 or so each place. And I spend about $75. I've calculated, and it's pretty consistent. Sometimes a little bit less because I don't have to replenish everything every month. So yeah, just conservatively, it's about $75. Now electricity, I spend about, well, my electricity bill, it comes in, it's about 115 reais to maybe 150 reais. So that's about like $30 or so. Yeah, about $30. Conservatively, if it's on a higher end, it's like $30. I'm gonna do a lot of conservative estimates here. Because you can get things for a lot less, but I want you to be prepared. So now next thing is gas. Now you may or may not have to pay this depending on where you live, because some buildings are new and they have gas hookups and you probably only pay a couple times a year, just depends. Or you have an electric stove at your apartment. But a lot of places here in Brazil have these little gas canisters. They're not really little, actually. They're like pretty decently sized, and they're heavy, and you have to call up the gas company to come and replace it when you run out, and it's about $25. It also really, it isn't, you don't pay monthly. It's like, pay as you go. Whenever you finish your gas, you just have to replenish it, or just get another canister and they switch it out. And for me, when I was single, I only cooked about 3 times or 4 times a month, or a week, sorry. And my gas canister thing would finish in like 6 to 8 weeks. So I wasn't replacing it every month. So if you average it out, I was probably spending about $12 a month on gas. Now the gym is pretty much the same as what you would pay in a first world country. It was $25 a month, and I go to a gym called Self Fit. out here. There's also Smart Fit, and it's about the same price, and there's a bunch of other gyms. Transportation. Now, this is gonna vary depending on what city you live in. Like, for instance, Rio and Sao Paulo have more extensive transportation networks. Sao Paulo, for instance, has a very extensive transportation network. So I'll just go off that. I spent about $75 a month when I was living there. And most times I'll just take the train or I'll take Ubers. So it would split between trains and Ubers. And like half the time I'll take a train, half the time I'll take an Uber. Uber rides range from like $3 or even $2 to $10. They're not really that expensive. I think the most I've ever paid for an Uber ride is like $15 or so. I don't think I've paid even more than that. Yeah, so my transportation usually averages about $75 a month. Now, next I'm gonna talk about high-speed internet. Now, I have 1 gigabyte of download speed and about 500 megabytes per second of upload speed. So that cost me about $30 for high-speed internet. Now they have a few companies out here. They have I think Vivo, Claro, and Chim, and I have Chim, and that plan I believe is about 1 gigabyte of download speed, and I think 500 or 250 of upload speed. And yeah, that's $30, and my internet is like super fast. The next I'm going to talk about is health insurance, and you really only can get this when you have your permanent residency and you also have you know, your CPF and all the other documents that you need. And the major players out here are Amill1, 𝗕𝗂𝗶𝗲𝗍, Bradesco Saúde, Notre Dame Intermédica, and Centro Nacional Unimed. And for health insurance, I pay only $70 a month, and that covers me in the whole country. So I have private health insurance. They do have the public health insurance, which everybody has access to, even like tourists who are just here and maybe they got injured, you know, God forbid. But yeah, I use a private health insurance because you have access to higher quality hospitals, and you can just like get seen a lot quicker. So I use the private health insurance. It's pretty cheap. And then my streaming services. Once you have bank accounts and you have all your documents here, you can actually get streaming services for like half the price. For instance, my Netflix is like 50 reais, and I think I can add like 4 or so people, and that's like $10. My Spotify is like 35 reais for 5 people. And Amazon is like 19 reais a month, which is about $4 or so. So it's like literally all the streaming services are like half the price, and all of my streaming services I pay the equivalent of about $25 a month. Now phone is kind of like the gas thing, where you don't really have to pay every month. It's pay as you go. And when I'm outside, I don't really stream video. The only things I really do is send text and listen to, you know, music like on Spotify or listen to podcasts. I don't really stream videos while I'm like outside, because I take the train or I'm taking the bus or I'm like, you know, taking an Uber, and I don't really watch, you know, videos on my phone. Like I said, I'm just listening to music or sending texts. So it takes a long time for my data to finish. And really, when I fill it up with like $40, that realistically, and I'm being realistic, can last me like 3.5 or 4 months before I have to replenish it again. So the next thing I'll add, because like I said, I'm doing this as, you know, I'm outlining these expenses in the lens and the perspective of a single person. So single people enjoy leisure and dating, and even in your relationship, because me and my wife, we still go on dates. We went on a date the other day. So yeah, whether you're single or in a relationship, you're still probably gonna have to go on dates and, you know, do leisurely activities. And my budget for that is $175, because each date, so we went on a date the other day, and it was like 223 reais, which is about $40 or so. Yeah, it's about $40. So if we go on a date like maybe 3 times a month, that's like $120. And then some other leisure activities, you know, an extra $50 or so. One thing about the bigger cities in Brazil, like Rio, Salvador, and Sao Paulo, is they have a lot of free events. So check these pages, like the Prefeitura pages, and Prefeitura is just basically the mayor. The government of these cities and states, they plan a lot of events, and a lot of high quality free events like concerts and fairs and all these other types of shows and stuff. And you just have to check their Instagram pages and social media, so you can have, you know, a lot of leisure activities that are just free, and a lot of other low cost activities and stuff. I mean, if you're outside, like, you probably won't spend like more than $200 a month. So but I conservatively spend like $175 on that. So the last thing I'll talk about is haircuts. Now, I go to like a very upscale barbershop here in Salvador, and even when I was in Rio, I went to a very nice barbershop, and they were considered like more, I guess, I don't know just how to say this, more posh or whatever, but my haircuts are $13, and that's beard, head, everything. You know, this is my haircut. I mean, it's kind of old, a few days old, not a few days, like at least a week actually. So it was 50 reais for the haircut that I just got, and that's about $10 because, you know, divide that by 5. And I get a haircut maybe once, maybe twice a month, so that adds up to about maybe $20 to $25. I nearly forgot the most important expense: rent. Now, for a nice 1-bedroom with a balcony in a decent neighborhood, or even a nice neighborhood here in Brazil, in most cities, you'll probably get something for about $400 a month, maybe $500. But for me, I found an apartment for $400 that I rented out for about 8 or 9 months or so. That was in Centro in Rio de Janeiro. That was in a pretty nice neighborhood, like near 𝗕𝗂𝗧. So it was pretty nice. It was a nice apartment. I had a nice view of, like, you know, those mountainous ranges. I could see 𝗕𝗂𝗨𝗍𝗂𝗧 from my apartment. It was beautiful. It was cool. I'll include some, you know, pictures if I can. And that was $400 a month. And yeah, and that's like the average price that you would find an apartment for in like a, you know, decent or nice neighborhood in Brazil. And if it's a newer building, it's a little bit more expensive, but I was paying $400 a month. So yeah, so I'm looking at my calculator here, and if you total all of those expenses up, I'm going to show you that it totals up to $966. So it was $966. So we're just under $1,000. And yeah, that's basically what I was paying and how I was living for under $1,000 a month. As you can see, I had my most basic living expenses. I didn't include anything like travel and like other more leisure and more entertainment expenses. I just included the bare necessities and a little bit of leisure. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So I hope this video provides you a little bit of clarity as to what you would spend living in Brazil, and how you can live pretty good for under $1,000 a month. It's totally possible. My apartment in Rio de Janeiro was nice. I had everything, and you know, I lived a good life. And even here, like with my wife, we live in a very nice neighborhood in Salvador, in 𝗙𝗂𝗏, which is very touristy, very affluent. And our expenses are only a couple more $100 in what I would pay for living alone. We spend about $1,200 a month. Our rent is like 5 something. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what you would spend living in Brazil. So I hope this video helped somebody out, gave you a clear picture as to what you would be spending living here in Brazil. And if you like content like this, comment below. Let me know where you're trying to live and what things you're trying to learn about Brazil before you get here. And like, comment, and subscribe, and share for more content. Thanks a lot.